to sit back on your backside and moan about the 9 to 5 job that you've got, carry on.
66 grand over 7 years. So that's more than tripling your cash.
Good deal.
How many bazoomas have you just put in your pocket? Further profit of £78,982. Boom! Hello there and welcome to this week's edition of Money Matters, because after all, money does matter. How would you like to discover, as we go through this video together, how you can make £100,000 in just one deal? So we'll go through the amount of money you would need, what guarantees you've got, but the thing that I'm talking about this week is rent to buy. I think this is the most little known and best kept secret in the property industry. There's so many challenges out there for both tenants and landlords, and very often it's tenants against landlords. One gets set against the other. So let me just give you a little example of what I'm talking about. Especially during pandemic and lockdowns and everything else, people's really struggled, and I get that. I'm very, very sympathetic as a landlord to tenants' problem. But if a tenant gets to the point where they can't pay, in a normal world, in my world, what I think would be a good solution would be the tenant goes to see the landlord, they have a discussion, they agree, a payment plan or give it so many months or whatever. But at some point, decent human beings don't want to freeload on other people. So they would agree, right, well, can you give me a month? I'm trying my hardest, I'm going to get another job or whatever, or my mum's going to lend me some money or whatever it might be, and I'll get you your rent one way or another. But tell you what, if I can't do that a month from now, I'll just move out. Now, that in my world, that would be a normal, good conversation. And I'll tell you why that conversation doesn't happen, because if a tenant did that, according to the rules, according to the legal system, according to the benefit system, they'd have just made themselves voluntarily homeless. Now, that to me is completely absurd. They didn't get themselves made redundant on purpose. They didn't want to not pay the rent. But if you speak to shelter or if you speak to the local council, they will tell you stay there until that landlord evicts you, because only then will you'll be entitled to benefits. So for me, that is complete and utterly mad. But that is the fundamental reason why landlords and tenants are at loggerheads. And if you said to a tenant, what's your biggest problem? They'd probably say the landlord. And if you said to the landlord, what's your biggest problem? They'd probably say the tenant. But it's because of the system. So how about we change the system? So here is the new system, the rent to buy system. Instead of renting it to a regular tenant, you actually rent it to a tenant who's got aspirations of owning their own home. And they enter into a contract with you for 7 years, and I'll explain why 7 years shortly, and they pay a normal rent over that 7 years, but also during that 7 years, they pay a little bit extra every month. We call it a top up. That goes into a separate client account, so you, the landlord, can't touch it. But over the 7 years, they save up a 10% deposit, and they then buy the house or flat from you. And the figure we use for the annual increase is the RICS, Royal Institute Chart Surveyors recommended average, which is 4%. Each year they're in the property goes up in value normally, and over a 7-year period, it's probably going to go up by 4% compounded 7 times, which is roughly 31%. So it's almost a third. So if you had a £300,000 house, they would buy it from you for roughly £400,000. If you had a £100,000 house, it will be £130,000. That is the core, that is the nuts and bolts of it. But what we're going to do now is we're going to look at this from everybody's perspective, from the landlord's perspective, from the tenant's perspective, from the estate agent's perspective, because there's very, very few estate agents in the whole of the country that do this. And I mean the whole of the UK when I say the whole of the country. And finally, we're going to look at some actual numbers for £100,000 profit, or just a little bit over £100,000 profit from one property, and I think you're going to like it. So strap yourself in, enjoy the ride. Here we go down the rent to buy roller coaster. Okay, so let's go look at this from the landlord's perspective. I want to introduce you to a good friend of mine. This is Karen Bock. She inherited some money, and she wanted to make sure that she made the money work for her, as opposed to her having to work for the money. So listen in, I think you're going to like this.
Hiya, I'm Karen and I'm here at Touchstone today to go and view my first property that I've bought. It's for a rent to buy, and I'm really excited about going to see this one now. My mother died earlier on this year, and my sister and I inherited her property, which we sold for a substantial amount of money. I needed something to be doing with the money, not just sticking it in a bank and leaving it to rot. So I'd often thought about doing property, and was talking to Gordie about sourcing the property for me, which he did. We went to look at this property and I said yes straight away. It was a lovely house, 3-bedroom property, only needs a tiny little bit of work doing to it, which is a great thumbs up. so I don't have to do loads of work. Put an offer in, and that offer was accepted, and we're just waiting now for it all to go through with the solicitors and everything. Massive why as to why I'm doing this, which is my son. He's 16 and he's disabled. He doesn't walk. He never will walk. And unfortunately, I know our care system so well that I know he doesn't ever want to be what I call a wage slave. I don't want him to be a wage slave either. Don't fall on these. I prefer it in buy-to-lets because once I've put the people in who are going to rent it, it's basically their home. So they will eventually own it. I don't need to do anything. It takes out all the hassle of having a buy-to-let, of thinking, oh, if they broke a tap, I've got to come and fix and break a tap, I've got to find a plumber. No, it's their problem, not mine. So they pay a normal rent and a top-up, which goes towards, it's paid their deposit for their mortgage. If they walk away from that, that money's mine. Plus the fact if they default on their rent, I've got a top-up. I can take that money, the rent money from them. So it's a no-brainer. It's a win-win all the way down the line. It's lovely. I like it. I think it's something that's going to make somebody a really nice home. Really nice home. It's such a lovely area as well. It's got everything. Shops around the corner, nice school area, activities for kids to do, you know. So, but I would say to anybody that is looking to do something with money, if they happen to come into money, don't just stick it in a bank. Make it work for you. Go and go and have a go, and you meet so many nice people. They're all on the same wavelength as you. You don't get looked at like an idiot. Oh, what are you buying property for? You know, it's like, no, buy property. It's, you know, why not? It's there to be had. If you want to sit back on your backside and moan about the 9-to-5 job that you've got, carry on, because I want out of mine.
Okay, so how about that? What do you think to Karen and her journey? That's exciting stuff, isn't it? So there's the landlord. Let's now go and meet a lovely couple with some lovely children. So let's go and hear from Lee and Ashlyn, who are some rent-to-buy tenants that Gordie and myself, we took them a little bottle of champagne to say welcome to your new home. And this is what they had to say about rent-to-buy. Hello and welcome to Rossington. So the two of us have come out to welcome a new tenant buyer who just moved in here yesterday. Wow, they got this lovely new home and they've agreed to talk to us about what difference it's made to them. I'm looking forward to it and to welcome them to their new home because they will be buying this. We've bought them a little. See you inside. I'd like to introduce you to Lee and Ashlyn. So you've got 3 lovely babies.
Yes.
And you've got a 4th one on the way.
Yes.
So what does it feel like to actually move into a house that you're going to own?
Feels amazing.
Yeah?
Yeah. The process was fairly easy, weren't it?
Yeah, damn estates made it really easy.
The only stressful part was moving.
Well, yeah. What's this little one called?
Angelica.
Angelica. You're here for good now. And
Yes,
does it feel
definitely.
like a family home yet?
Already?
Yes.
Just after like one night?
I think it's because we all muddled in. We all pitched in and we all did a bit of something, even the kids.
What's the last few years been like?
Rough.
Rough?
Renting, yeah.
You had to move a few times?
Yeah, it's always been down to landlords selling houses from beneath you.
I'm a landlord,
Well, you've given us an opportunity.
but I love doing this. I love doing we call it rent to buy. So rent it and then buy it later.
Yeah.
From your perspective, what was the advantage of being able to do it like this?
Well, obviously, we just look at it as though you're just paying rent now, rather than you've got to save on top of your rent, so to speak.
I think that was our issue, having to put a bit of money aside,
Yeah.
as well as paying the rent and the bills.
Yeah.
At least this way, it's all done in one move.
Yeah.
And you don't miss it because it's not there. We're not very good savers, are we? If we do save, it's like something breaks down or the kids need to pay for a school trip or whatever, so then you're dipping in and dipping in and dipping in.
If there's somebody out there watching this that fancies the idea of rent to buy, what advice would you give them?
Do it.
Do it.
Do it, yeah, I think that's as simple as that, just do
There's no other
it.
answer, is there? No deposits to pay.
No deposit,
No.
You know,
no
simple,
paperwork
innit?
really, there's no mortgage application now.
No.
So you've got years to get that sorted, haven't you?
Can't with estates, here we go.
Yeah.
Government estates, that's it. What a fabulous couple, in fact, what a fabulous family. I mean, they were so delighted to be in that house, and you didn't see it in the video, but they actually had a couple of dogs as well. So there are all sorts of issues with previous tenancies that Rent to Buy just ticks all of their boxes. Next up in this quickfire series through what is Rent to Buy, let's go meet the agent. So let's go meet my friend, business partner, Gordie Duffield, and let's find out what kind of properties do you need, special mortgages, paperwork, all that stuff. Over to Gordie. Okay, so I would like to introduce you to my good friend and business partner, Gordie.
How are we getting on?
Very good. So, Gordie, you run Diamond Estates, yeah?
Yep.
And one of the parts of Diamond Estates is Rent to Buy. Mm-hmm. Why do you think Rent to Buy is a good thing for landlords and tenants?
Okay. I think in property, what we've seen over the years is tenants v landlords.
Yes.
It's always been tenants v landlords, tenants v landlords.
Yeah.
And I truly believe this is a complete win-win for both parties. Mm-hmm. Is there anything wrong with us making money and helping other people?
No.
I don't believe so. So I think the big thing is for Rent to Buy, for landlords, is a secure income for a many period of years. And for the tenants, they're getting an opportunity what they may never had before, an opportunity to own their own home, which I think is cool.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. If we're going to try and help both parties here, so, tenants, landlords, they'll be watching this video. So if a landlord wants to get into Rent to Buy, what's the ideal property?
Good question. Just to be clear, we filled 1-bed flats, we filled 7-bed houses, we filled £40,000 houses, we filled £1.2 million houses. But I think the ideal property that we look at is a 2-3 bedroom house, either a terrace, semi-detached or detached. That's the kind of ideal.
2-3 bed house. Does a garden matter?
Not massively. What we are seeing since COVID is gardens are becoming more popular.
Okay. What about parking, garages, anything like that?
No, again, doesn't really matter. On-street parking's fine.
So what you're really talking about is vast majority of properties are probably going to be suitable.
Correct.
But what I'm getting a feel for is that probably a studio flat is the least suitable. Because it's not somebody's forever home.
No.
Which parts of the country do you cover?
Which parts of the country don't we cover? I think
Right.
maybe the better one. Everywhere, all over.
So top of Scotland to the bottom of England.
We've got stuff right up in Nairn, which is beside Inverness, and we've got stuff right down in Portsmouth.
All right. So almost anywhere in the UK, and the vast majority of types of property.
Yeah.
What about from a tenant's perspective? Where do you find tenants from? Are there many of them? In fact, let me change the question.
Okay.
Have you got more tenants or have you got more properties?
More tenants.
More tenants?
We've got more tenants.
Like how many more tenants?
Thousands more tenants.
So there's thousands of people that want to buy their own property.
Correct.
And when people come through to Diamond Estates and say, I've heard about this Rent to Buy thing or whatever, do they actually believe it or do they think, what the hell's going on?
It takes some convincing. We had to really adjust this at the very start as well, because we had to figure out what they didn't understand about it. But no, I think once it's explained clearly to them, they get it. It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple.
Well, it is essentially.
Yeah.
Rent for the 7 years, save up a deposit and buy the house.
Yeah, correct.
It's not a difficult concept.
No.
There has to be downsides. What's the downside here?
Downside, it's funny this, because I don't know if I see this as the downside, but if you're a landlord and the property does increase more than what the pre-agreed price was, you will lose out on the money on the sale price. But I also asked the question, would you be happy with 7 years guaranteed right and an increase in 31.6% in 7 years? Well, the answer is yes. So I don't really see that as a downside, but I suppose that is.
Yeah, no, I do get that. I get that from property investors, because Warren Buffett, obviously not really a property investor, he's a stocks and shares investor, but he says his favourite holding period is forever.
Yeah.
And there's many landlords that just don't like the idea of selling.
Yeah, correct.
But I normally counter that by saying, well, if you've got one property and it goes up in value by say 30% over 7 years, you can take that, the original equity you had in your original house, you can take the sale price, and you can turn one house into two, typically.
Very true. Yeah, very true.
Yeah, what about from the tenant's perspective? I mean, I guess there will be downsides. I mean, I know one of our Rent to Buy tenants discovered after a couple of years that the property just wasn't right for them, and they left.
Yeah.
I think it's something to do with the relationship or something.
Yeah.
But they had to walk away from 2 years top-up money.
Yeah. That is the downside. People's circumstances do change, and with regards to the contract, they are contractually obliged to stay there for the period of the rental term. If they leave early, they lose their top up.
Yep.
But that is fully explained to them beforehand. They are adults, so they understand that when they're moving in.
What I want to do is, I just want to ask you a dead simple question. With one £100,000 house, around here you can still buy a house for £100,000.
Yeah.
With a £100,000 house, how much money, realistically, do you think a landlord could earn over the 7-year period from that £100,000 house? What are their total income streams going to be? If you take a 4% average, which is what we take, isn't it? And 4% times 4%, 4% 7 times, works out at 31 point something percent. So let's call it 31%.
Yep.
31% on a £100,000 house is obviously £31,000.
Yep.
So that's your capital increase. What's the monthly rent on this one you're talking about?
It's £600 per month. 600. Yeah.
600 quid a month. So if we then say that all your bills and the mortgage and everything else, it's not even going to be 200 quid, it'll be less than 200 quid. So say 650. 650. So let's say 450 quid times 10 is 4,500. So that'd be 5,400.
Yeah.
So I reckon, let's keep it simple. Make five grand a month on the rent.
Yeah.
£5 a year.
You give me £5 grand a month in the rent,
£5 grand a month. £5 a year. So it's going to be £35,000 rental profit.
Right.
And £31,000 capital profit.
He's a human calculator, isn't he? Jesus. He said it was a simple question as well.
66 grand. So here's the question, landlords out there, or potential landlords out there, would you be happy with £66,000 profit from one £100,000 house? Because if you're going to buy a £100,000 house, you can still get 80% buy-to-let mortgage.
Yeah, of course you can.
So you'd have to come up with 20 grand.
Yeah, 100%.
So how about that, everybody? You put in 20 grand, your 20 grand could be returned to you with an extra 66 grand over 7 years. So that's more than tripling your cash.
Good deal.
You might be out there thinking, oh, Jesus, I've got some rent, I've got some buy-to-let properties, I want to turn them into rent to buy, or I'm going to go and buy some.
Yeah.
What should they do?
Give me a phone. Very simply.
So here's the details for Diamond. Here's the phone number. Here's the website address. So just crack on and get hold of Gordie or one of the team.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, just a word of warning. It's absolutely fine speaking to Gordie or Diamond, but there's actually very, very few agents that do this, isn't there?
There's a couple of agents that do it. We're by far the biggest and best that do it, though. Yeah.
So if you're interested, you want to learn more, crack on, pick up the phone, send an email, whatever. Thank you very much, Gordie.
Pleasure. Take care. Thank you. Boom.
All right, so thank you, Gordie. That was fascinating, wasn't it? And something Gordie, and I just checked with him afterwards just to give a bit of extra information. Last week, Diamond Estates took on 17 more rent-to-buy properties, and most of them are filled already. So imagine if you'd been that landlord that gave Diamond Estates your property last week, probably have a tenant in it already. So that's 17 a week we're taking on at the moment. There's a massive demand for this. Anyway, enough of the chit-chat and meeting everyone. Let's go to the numbers room and crunch some numbers. Okay, so welcome to the numbers room. This is the numbers board. But before we get to that, look at this house. So this is the house that I'm going to use just work through the numbers with you on. So this is Elm Green, Conisbrough, and it's a property. I'll show you all the figures, but it's a 3-bed house that we're turning into a 4-bed house. So as you've heard, 3-4-bed detached houses with gardens, absolutely ideal for rent to buy. So let's get into the numbers. I want to give you the full numbers. So this is actually a combination strategy that I'm giving you now. This is buy, refurbish, remortgage, and then rent to buy on the end. So quickly, we purchased this one for £163,000. That was the purchase price on this one. If I had to get all the legals, the refurb and everything else, and I'm just putting it all in one number, the total was £35,000. All up, we're into this property for, what's that, £188,000. Okay, so that's the total cost of buying it. Next, what's it worth after the refurb? Because we've turned it from a 3-bed to a 4-bed. We just rearranged some of the walls upstairs. It was actually quite cheap to do. Boom! It goes and revalues at £250,000, which is sweet. Now, if you want to, you can put an 80% buy-to-let mortgage on that. So 80% of that is £200,000. Still quite affordable mortgages, but we've only spent £188,000. So end of stage 1, we have got a house with none of our own money in it and £12,000. Ka-ching, happy days. Everyone happy with that? So that is part 1. You, the landlord, if it is you, the landlord, you've got a £250,000 house, and that's the starting price, okay? You've got a £200,000 mortgage on it, so in addition to the money you've pulled out, you've also got £50,000 of equity in the property. So along comes a tenant buyer and says, I would like to rent that property for the short term and I would like to purchase it in the long term. And just to remind you, the 2 main reasons why tenant buyers don't buy their own houses straight off the bat is they've either got some sort of poor credit history, CCJ, something like that. And believe it or not, 25% of the UK population is impacted by some sort of credit issue. 25%. And the other main reason is they ain't got a deposit. So we need to look at two things. How does it impact the tenant? What's all the numbers for the tenant? And what's the numbers for the landlord? So first up, you've decided to sell it in 7 years' time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years' time. And each year, RICS, Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, said you should assume that house prices increase by 4%. Okay, so the Department of Hard Sums has been hard at work, and drum roll please. Here we go. The sale price will be £328,982, which is a further profit of £78,982. Boom. But that's not the end of it. That's just your capital profit on the sale of the property. And don't forget, you've already taken 12 grand out. So you haven't actually got any of your own money in here. So you've already got money out, plus further capital profit, 7 years' time, of £328,982 minus £250,000. £78,982. Happy days. You know, I said that's not all of it. That's just the capital profit. Well, let's add the rent, shall we? So let's move our money up here. Boom! Still makes me happy every time I see that. And now let's add the rent profit. The rent for this particular house in this particular area is £1,100 per month. We're going to look at two separate things now. We're going to look at what do you, the landlord, make money-wise out of it, and what does it actually cost the tenant to buy it, okay? So let's do the what do you make out of it first. In fact, no, let's have a look at how much does the tenant actually pay first, because that's nice and easy. They pay the £1,100 per month, but they also need a top-up. The top-up goes towards the deposit so they can buy it. So they need to have a 10% deposit so they can buy the property in 7 years' time. To be safe, let's round that up to 330,000. So they need a £33,000 deposit. We can divide that by 84. Why 84? Well, that's 7 years times 12 months. So if they're contributing monthly in even amounts, it's that figure divided by 84. So get the trusty calculator out. £392.85. So let's round it up to their top up will be 300, and let's call it 395, because you don't want a silly figure like £392.86, or at least I wouldn't. On top of their rent money of 1,100, they're paying roughly an extra 400 quid a month, and in 7 years' time they've got £33,000, because this top up doesn't actually go into your bank account, because that wouldn't be right or fair or ethical. It actually goes into a client account, which means unless they breach their terms and conditions or don't pay the mortgage or something, you can't touch it. So as long as they honour their side of the contract, you've got to honour your side of the contract, and they get £33,000 cash back at the end of the 7 year period. They take that and then they go and buy the house. Okay, so hope that's nice and clear. So let's wipe that slate clean, shall we? What do you, the landlord, get? Because I said right at the beginning of this, you can make more than 100 grand in one deal. You've got to ignore the top up, because that's not your money unless they mess you about. So you're getting £1,100 a month. Now we said, didn't we, on this one, that it was a £200,000 mortgage. So what's the interest payment on a £200,000 mortgage? Well, interest only is normal for buy to let. So we've got 200,000 like that. And I'm going to say, we said this was an 80% mortgage, so I've actually looked just before I recorded this at these sort of price comparison websites for mortgages, and it was just a little bit less than, but I'm going to call it 4%. 200,000 times 4% is £8,000 a year. So if we divide that by 12, that is, ooh, that's a scary number. That's the number of the beast. Look at that. This is the beast of a project. 666. 666. Do I need a cross or something when I write that number down? It's like, this is scary, isn't it? So that's your mortgage. What else do you need to pay? Well, you need to pay insurance. And landlord insurance, buildings insurance, is probably going to be about 20 quid, something like that. So let's just make it a nice round number. If I put 24 there, that's going to round it up. And what other costs have you got? Well, here's the great bit. Normally I'd be saying, oh, you need to put aside 20% for, voids and maintenance and all that, but you don't, because it's a rent to buy. So all the money you would normally have to spend on the property, paint it, fix the boiler if it breaks, all that stuff, well, the tenant's doing that because it's their home, or it will be in 7 years' time. Oh, it's their home now, for goodness sake, because that's what the contract says. It's binding as long as they do what they say they're going to do. So I had 24 quid for insurance. Now, because rent to buys are so simple to manage, many people would manage it themselves. But let's say, worst case, you actually employed an agent to do it. You negotiate with the agent, you said, I'll pay you 10% is the normal rate, but it's so easy, blah, 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 blah. So let's call it £100. So this is for the letting agent, the letting fees. Let's add all that up, £790. So your total costs are £790. So your profit per month, you've got your £1,100. We need to take off £790, which makes £310 per month profit. What I now need to do to get to my 7 years profit is very, very simple. I need to take my £310, multiply it by 84, which is 7 years and 12 months, which gives me a further £26,040. Now let's go for the grand total, shall we? Are you ready for the big reveal? The grand total. How many bazoomas have you just put in your pocket? How much extra cash have you got on your hip? Will your trousers fall down? These are all important questions to ask because look at this. Boom! Grand total 105,022 of your English pounds. Well, British pounds, actually. So, just to go through that slowly so we all understand. So, we started off at £250,000, didn't we? So it's not fair you'd actually get £50,000 cash more than this, but you could have sold it at the start for £250,000, couldn't you? So when we're talking about extra profit from rent to buy, the fair way to do it is not to deduct the mortgage, but to deduct the start value. So we've agreed the sale price with the tenant, £328,982, that's 4%, 4%, 4%, 7 times. The start value was £250,000. So the extra money you've made because of rent to buy is £78,982. So it's just that, take away that. And then we said per month you make £310 profit. Well, if you do that for 7 years, 12 months in a year, obviously, that's where the 26,040 comes from. Add them together, boof, socks off. Go and catch your socks, they're flying around the living room. £105,022 with zero aggravation. Because I don't know about you, many people, I talk to a lot of people, that's what I do, I'm a professional speaker, I talk. A lot of people tell me that time is the most valuable asset. They all agree with me, yeah, time's the most valuable asset, Paul. And then they want to micromanage everything. I don't. I want to put a tenant in, send them a Christmas card every year, and they make 100 grand profit. That is far, far better for me than chasing tenants through the courts, rent arrears, fixing things. I'm making money. I'm doing a really good thing because this is a lovely family home and a lovely family will buy it in 7 years' time. So it's a roof over somebody's head that they otherwise wouldn't have. And I'm making 100 grand in the process. And okay, I showed you an example here where we actually purchased the property, we did it up, we turned it into a 4-bed house. You don't need to do all that stuff. You don't. Because you could just go, my kids, by the way, this is what they call it, so I'll just explain to you. You could just go to the house shop, because we buy so many houses. Jenny and Jude, our youngsters, they don't call it the estate agent, they call it the house shop. So you could just go to the house shop, don't do anything clever, don't do anything, advanced that would need training. Just go and buy a property for £250,000. So yes, you've got to put down £50,000, but in 7 years' time, you've tripled it. So instead of 50 grand, you've now got 150 grand. And now instead of one house, go and buy 3. Just recycle that cash and buy 3 more. Anyway, let's wrap this up. Hope you like the number crunching room. We'll be back here soon. And that, my friends, is how you make money with rent to buy. Oh, sorry, I forgot. That's worst case because that assumes you don't put the rent up for 7 years, and that's quite unlikely, isn't it? But you'd agree that at the start. Anyway, speaking of up, okay, and that, my friends, is a wrap. One project, dead simple, £100,000 profit. If you like the idea of rent to buy and you haven't quite got it, go and watch it again with the best 15 minutes you ever invest in yourself. Let us know how we can help you. Put your comments below. Make sure you've subscribed and put the notification bell on. You've been wonderful. I've been Paul. See you next week.